everyone, and welcome to Energetic Conversations. Today, Daniel and I will be talking about protecting our peace in times of chaos. And I will wait for him to join the conversation. And before that, I just want to remind everyone that due to the nature of the conversation, we don't know exactly what will come up today. So just take care of yourselves. If you need to leave the conversation and come back, or if you might be triggered by something that we say, like, by all means do look after your mental health. We're very much about that here. So we tend to work in a very intuitive way, so whatever comes through us comes through us. So and thank you all for joining, and I will wait for Daniel to join. Bear with me a second. Hi there, I'm just waiting for Daniel to join, so he should be with us in a second. I love technology in moments like this. For anyone just joining, just waiting for Daniel to come through. And I was just saying hey, that just look after your mental health today, because that's what we're all about here, as you know, and we're bringing through whatever comes through intuitively. So we don't know exactly what's going to come through yet. So if something does come through that is triggering, please take time to look after yourself. If you need to leave the conversation, please do, and then come back or tap into it another time. Okay, I think Daniel is here. Bear with me a second. Oh, camera's the wrong way.
Perfect. Oh yeah, it's always goes that way for some reason. Give me 2 secs.
Sure.
How you doing?
I'm okay, thank you. I was worried that we'd lost you and that I had to come out of the conversation and join again. So I'm glad that it's all turned out well.
It's all turned out well. I was looking for your personal account, so I couldn't see you. I was on your personal account waiting for you to go live, and I realized you were doing it from Energetic Conversations today.
Yep, our new baby, our new account.
I know. Sorry about that. Sorry to keep everyone waiting.
It's okay. It's okay. So I was just letting everyone know just to look after themselves today, and so that part I have gone over, and wondered if you wanted to say anything about our sacred container.
Yeah, well, one, it's just good to be with everyone today. It's good to be here, and just thank you all for joining. Maya and I have been cultivating and fortifying our sacred container between the two of us. And Energetic Conversations really is just an opportunity for other people to experience us in our space, in our container. And so you're welcome here, and we just ask that, everyone protects their energy, and Maya and I will be doing the same to protect our individual energy and to protect and honor the sacred container that we have between each other. So, this is a sacred space, this is a safe space, and we just ask that you honor it as we honor you. And and I'm sure we'll have a good conversation.
Cool. Well, how are you doing today?
Well, energetically, I'm kind of, I'm up and down, I would say, energetically. Also, you and I were speaking a bit beforehand. So, there's kind of a lot going on at the moment, but overall, I feel good. I do feel grounded. And I'm really looking forward to our conversation. How about yourself?
I as we were saying earlier, I feel a little bit emotionally tender today. I'm just about to start my period as well, so I'm feeling that kind of. I'm quite easily triggered before that time, so things can feel a bit more tender. At the same time, I also feel peaceful. It's like a nuanced situation, and I'm really feeling this Pisces energy. Like there is so much, like the boundaries between worlds seem really blurred. Emotions seem quite high, but also a lot of like very strong dreams, a lot of strong dream time and intuitive downloads and things like that. So there's a lot of watery Pisces energy, and you actually having a Pisces sun, me having like strong Pisces Jupiter and Mars, like we're very Piscean anyway. So I
Definitely.
think with like the moon, the sun, Jupiter and Neptune now in Pisces, I think even we don't know what's going to come up necessarily in this conversation. So let's just see.
Yeah, definitely not. Well, yeah, and shout out to all the Pisces out there. It's Pisces season. Yeah. So today, no, go for it.
Oh, okay, right. Today we're talking about protecting our peace, and the reason, I mean, I'm sure we don't need to explain to you all why we're talking about this right now, because there's always a lot going on in the world, but things seem to be heightening at the moment. The current situation between Russia and Ukraine has been playing on the news. Do watch the news, and in social media, there's been a lot of heightened emotion. People are, turning against each other in how they respond to this war situation. And so there's just a very heightened emotions. And, it's because we like to talk about things that are coming up for us. And we talk about current events. Like this is something that we thought might be interesting to talk about and maybe helpful for other people. Because I'll speak for myself, like at this point in time as a person of color, as a woman of color, protecting my peace, cultivating a sense of peace goes without saying, no matter what is happening in the outside world. And so this is something that I know we've both spoken about before. So yeah, we thought we'd talk about this today and see what comes through, share some thoughts and reflections on it. And if anyone has any questions, please do type them in the question. There's like a little button at the bottom of the screen. And if we do have time, we will get to your questions as well. So yeah, like there's a lot going on. A lot will continue to go on. Now I have a lot of thoughts about this, but let's take it to you. How do you feel about your energy during this time of world crisis, which, goes from one crisis to the next?
Yeah, for sure. I think right now I would say I do feel pretty grounded. Both of us work quite hard, in protecting our boundaries, and I think we're quite diligent in that. And I feel that's the same way with things that are coming, that are happening across the world. I have to protect my energy full stop, whether that's my friends, my family, colleagues, whoever it may be. I have to protect my energy, and we have to have those boundaries there that protect our energy and protect our peace so that we can not just live in this life, but that we can continue to progress, continue to evolve, continue to heal. And when you have so much, I think, interference coming from, from outside, I think spaces, it's more challenging to ground. It's more challenging to understand what's going on internally and what's the right path for you to take, and not just the path that the kind of the zeitgeist and the collective are taking. And so for me, it's really important that I do kind of, again, ground myself and know what direction I'm going in. So I would say, to be honest, the past couple of weeks, I felt quite good. Like I said, I've been speaking with you and we've been catching up and everything like that. I'm in a really good space right now in my life, and I think that's also worth sharing, is that like there can be a lot going on in the world, but internally, you can be doing really well, and I think that's where I'm at right now. I'm doing really well. There's a lot of good things happening for me. There's a lot of exciting things happening for me. There's a lot of healing that's taking place, which is challenging, but that's part of the work for me to do. And that's how I feel right now. I feel good. I'm not oblivious to what's going on in the world. And again, what's going on right now, particularly with Russia and Ukraine, there's always stuff going on. there's always stuff going on in the world. And, I understand that, this is a focal point for a lot of people right now. But, again, it's about protecting your peace and protecting your energy. You don't have to get sucked in and engage the same way that someone else may do. So I think right now I'm really doing the best I can to protect my energy with not just what's going on with the Ukraine and Russian conflict right now, but again, what goes on all the time across the world.
You make a good point. There are things going on that the news doesn't cover across the world. A lot of wars going on in different countries, a lot of conflict going on in different countries. So, once again, we have to be mindful that the news does cover things that it chooses to. But there is a lot of conflict happening in the world. And so this is really a conversation about how do we cope with any of that, with all of that, because there will always be something happening around the world which is disturbing and which can be very re-traumatizing. And it's like, what's our path in that? What's the right thing for everyone involved? And I think a really important distinction to make is that protecting your peace doesn't mean not doing anything. It actually means you can do more in the right way for you from a very calm and embodied place. An example of which is, if you doom scroll, and if you're kind of like scrolling through and your mind is being flooded and your eyes are being flooded with a lot of traumatizing photos and images and news, what it can do is actually trigger you, and your nervous system can be so triggered that you can go into like a trauma response, especially if you already have things like PTSD, and if you already have struggled in your life with high levels of trauma, which, let's face it, a lot of people of colour naturally have, especially living in the Western world, but not just people of colour as well, like everyone. I think what can happen is you can go into a panic and freeze and feel overwhelmed, feel like despair, I don't know what to do. And so actually in that state, it's not the most helpful state anyway. And in that state, the best thing to do for anyone, including most importantly yourself, is to come back down to like a calm nervous system, because that's when real creative ideas and solutions come through anyway. And I think another thing that's come to me recently is that we all have a different part to play. So our part is this. Our part is very specifically like supporting particularly communities of colour, but everyone, in like mental health and healing and these different conversations we have. But then someone else's role might be to volunteer for something. Someone else's role might be to share information. I think we need to also figure out what our strength is and what our gifts are, and focus on that rather than trying to fix everything and do everything, because it's not possible. It's not possible. You're just going to get overwhelmed. And when this conflict ends, another conflict will arise. That's a given. So it's about the marathon. It's not about the sprint, which is something that you like to say a lot, and it really has stayed with me.
Definitely, and yeah, and also too, not just that one crisis will end and another will begin, is that there are usually a variety of different conflicts going on at the same time. It's just like, and so it's important to remember, like Maya said, that, you have to understand what role you play within the collective. So for mine, we're in the healing space, like Maya's already articulated, we're in this healing space, and this is the work that we do to support ourselves and the collective. So I don't need to go and try and be like someone else. I don't need to go and try and fill a role that someone else is already filling. Again, it's like by protecting your energy, it's not that you're doing nothing. It's the fact that you're just doing what you are called to do and what your role is. And so again, I'm not oblivious to what's going on. Maya's not oblivious to what's going on. We're doing the work that ultimately will help with the collective and the underlying issues as to why there are conflicts going on at all. This is the work that we've been called to do. This is what, part of our soul's agreement, and this is the work that we choose to do. Getting sucked into every conflict that arises is not going to be beneficial to the work that we've agreed to do before even coming into this world during this lifetime. And so it's, again, understanding what's going on in the world, being aware of it, but then bringing it back to, okay, what am I here to do? And what role do I play in this collective? So That's, I think that's the challenge for all of us, to continue to stay in our path while continuing to support the collective.
Absolutely, absolutely. And another key piece is joy. I think as a collective, we've been conditioned to feel that if someone is suffering, we can't feel joy. That our joy is somehow ignorant of their suffering. And that's a very kind of like, I feel personally, it's kind of like old patriarchal sort of Christian type. And I don't mean like good Christian, I mean like kind of the religious ideology of like heaven and hell, sin and sinner, like that kind of like very black and white thinking, where, feeling joy when other people are suffering is bad, wrong, and this means you don't care. It's kind of like a martyr complex. But the thing is that if other people are suffering around the world and then you go into a suffering state because they're suffering, you're actually adding to that suffering energy as well. And you're not necessarily helping them by feeling terrible. Now, what could help them is being in a peaceful state, finding joy, and taking action. Whatever action it is that you want to take, whatever is right for you. True powerful action can come from an incredibly peaceful, joyful place. You don't have to match the suffering with suffering. Often that just drags the energy down, and it often makes us feel really, really helpless. And so, I've had to work on that myself. Both of us grew up here, and we'll talk about this in other conversations, like in a very Christian, there was a lot of Christianity involved. And so that kind of, if you want to serve the world, you naturally have to suffer. You have to suffer because that's just what people of service do. And actually, we're stepping out of that paradigm. The best thing I feel I can do for this world is be in joy. God knows I've not spent 100%. My life in joy. I've spent it in relative misery. So, that's my gift. My gift is my joy. And that doesn't mean ignorance. It just means I choose to bring my energy to a place that can actually impact others in a positive way. So, yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, and it's exactly what you said. It's about divesting from paradigms. It's the struggle paradigm. It's the suffering paradigm that, like Maya said, that we have to suffer to help people, or that we have to suffer to be aware of things. It's like, first of all, there are a variety of different lenses to view this in as well. This is a very intersectional conversation, and it has to be. So first of all, in general, you don't have to suffer to support someone. You don't have to suffer to help. You don't have to suffer to be aware of different issues. You just don't have to. You really don't have to. Now, this isn't bypassing, because that is a whole different thing. Now, bypassing happens a lot. Bypassing when someone wants to stay in their own world because it's too challenging for them to engage with what's going on, because obviously they may benefit from what's going on. And so again, when we look at through the lens of race, what we were seeing during Black Lives Matter, there was a lot of white bypassing. This is different to that. That, what was happening a lot during, 2020's iteration of Black Lives Matter and the conversation that continually happens around race. There are a lot of white people who bypass. They're like, I'm choosing not to engage with this because it's, they don't want to. And this is what we're talking about. What Maya and I are talking about is different to that. This is about understanding fully what's going on, understanding not just what's happening on the physical, but the energetics of what's going on. Yeah. And saying, actually, I divest from the paradigm that says, in order for me to help and support with this cause, I now have to suffer.
Yeah.
We're divesting from that paradigm. Now, if we look at this through the lens of race, as people of color, we have suffered enough. Literally, continuing to suffer is only, that's not healing ancestral lines. That's not healing yourself. That's not doing any of the work that's needed so that we can heal and progress and evolve. We have suffered enough. In what way do you want me to suffer more from what me and my people have already suffered? And then, so if we look at this again through this particular conflict with Ukraine and Russia, so let me just get this straight. You want me as a black man, a racialized black man living in the West, to now suffer because two countries that are white populated, particularly, are in conflict with each other. What exactly do you want me to do about that? Seriously, that's a question I would pose to everyone. What exactly do you want me to do about that? It doesn't mean I don't care. it doesn't mean that I don't have empathy and compassion. Again, the energetic conversations is the work I do to support everyone across the board. But you really want me to suffer as a Black man because now two countries that happen to be white, which is why this is getting the coverage it's getting in general, are now in conflict because they can't get it together. I'm not going to suffer any more than I have to, and I'm definitely not sure about to suffer more at the hands of people who have oppressed me. I'm not going to do that. That is a paradigm I am divesting from. I am out of. I'm not doing it, and I wouldn't encourage any person of color to do that either. Like, be in joy, be in peace. That is transformative. That is the revolution. That is the work. It's finding your joy, finding your peace, finding your rest. Our ancestors didn't get to do that. Our parents didn't get to do that. Our grandparents didn't get to do that oftentimes. Find your joy, find your peace, find your rest. That is transformative. That is healing. And operate from there. It's not saying don't take action if you feel called to do that. It's not saying don't be aware. It's saying, look, be conscious of protecting your peace, your energy, and your rest.
Yeah, absolutely. I really agree with that. And once again, you know, and I'll just quickly touch upon this, you know, Black people are still suffering due to this conflict. So at the end of the day, once again, Black people are suffering. You know, racism doesn't end just because conflict is happening. So please do look after your own joy, your own peace, your own mental health, because no one else will. You know, we really, it does come from our own choices and our own sovereignty. So yeah, I had something else I wanted to say, but with the Pisces season, I've just like completely forgotten it. But it was very.
We're just flowing.
Yeah, we're just flowing.
We're flowing.
Yeah. Oh, that was what I wanted to say. So with war, it's something about the energetics of it and conflict. Now, I just want to say that even if this ended, which I believe it will, so say it ended tomorrow, the energy of war will arise and is arising all the time because it's an energy. It's an energy that is within us. It's the conflict within us that we are needing to heal. So being in joy is part of actively helping, because war often comes from greed, from powerlessness, from trauma. You know, like people are acting on fear, on hatred. These are all emotions. These are all emotions, which is energy in motion. These are all things that once didn't have a physical form. They're just a feeling that then gets really sort of aggravated, and then people start manifesting and acting it out. So even if this ended tomorrow, like, war wouldn't end until people heal within themselves. This is why people say the inner revolution is the outer revolution. If everyone in this world turned around and just healed the conflict within themselves tonight, tomorrow the world would be a completely different place. So this is why, you know, what we do is encourage people to heal those wounds within themselves. Because as abstract as it sounds, you know, like, well, how can something happening within me affect out there? It does. It does. 100%. Because everything that happens out there is because of emotion and pain and, you know, hurt, wounding, fear, childhood trauma. Like, this is how it gets acted out in people. They inflict pain on others. Hurt people, that old saying. So, you know, it really is about kind of turning inwards and really, where are we in conflict with ourselves, and how much hatred do we hold? And we had a conversation about this today, hatred, because I've been working on my hatred. I spent the last 2 years acknowledging that I had a huge amount of hatred towards people that abused me in my life, particularly family members, past partners. So I had to acknowledge it. I'm not about bypassing, you know, this is something that we all carry some level of hatred, whether it be small or large. And I was acknowledging it, talking about it quite openly. You know, I had this hatred, and it's a very powerful feeling when you have it. It's like a sharp knife. And the thing is, unless we acknowledge it, it still continues to exist. It doesn't just go away because we're not acknowledging it. In fact, it has more power over you because it's unconscious. So it plays out anyway. You don't have any control over it. So I think one of the steps that I know helped me was acknowledging, like, Who do I hate and why? How am I acting out? How is it eating me up inside? How do I hate myself because I hate them? And one thing I did was I didn't force myself to forgive them, because I don't believe, for me anyway, that forgiveness can be forced. But I did kind of, I did allow for forgiveness to come when it was ready. And then the other day, like 2 years later, it actually come when I wasn't expecting it. So it did happen. But it was something that I just had to kind of, for me, patience was the key. Forcing it wouldn't work, because you can't force yourself. I don't think you can force yourself to feel anything, especially forgiving those who have really harmed you. But I think kind of acknowledging your hatred and kind of that contains it a bit, that contains you from having to spit it out at other people. And then just showing compassion towards it. You know, like, I carry hatred, I'm going to be loving towards it. That's my inner child probably trying to tell me something. And then eventually for me, forgiveness did come. You know, nothing's perfect. I'm not like out here like, yeah, I'm never going to get annoyed again. I'm never going to hate anyone again. But I think it did reassure me that actually it does happen. It does happen. And I think I would encourage anyone who's feeling similarly to maybe look at that with themselves.
Definitely. Beautifully said and articulated. And, you know, it's, again, you know, what you've spoken to, it's healing the underlying causes of why we experience any type of turmoil and conflict in this world during this lifetime. You know, it's like there's an energy to war, like you said. You know, it's the energetics of it. You know, this is called energetic conversation. So we're not, it's not about just looking at what's happening in the physical plane. You know, you got to understand and be able to see what's happening in the energetic realm. You know, it's like understanding what's going on that you can't see, the invisible. And that's the energetics of it all. And that's that's the work that Maya and I are called to, is understanding the energetics of what's happening. And things happen energetically before they happen physically.
Yes.
It happens in the unseen before it is seen.
Yeah.
You know, that's like, it's one of the principles of manifestation. It's one of the principles of energetics and how energy works at all. You know, so when we see war, understand that has been building up energetically, you know, for time. You know, before the first, you know, shot is ever fired, it's been happening energetically, you know, and so we have to understand that, you know, the dynamics of what are going on here. And if we're not healing that up, if we're not looking at that, then again, we will continue to be in war. We'll continue to be in conflict. There will continue to be a host of inequities, injustices, because again, we're not healing. If you're not doing the work, it's just going to manifest itself in another way, in another conflict, in another country, with another group of people. So this is the work that's on offer for all of us to do, And if we can get a handle on this, we will see this world change. Unequivocally, we will see this world change. But what this world tends to do is have you focus on the physical. And it's like only what you can see. You know, it's like, there's a war going on in Ukraine. You know, it's like, okay, cool. Well, like now we need to put all of our energy into focusing on this and attacking each other for how we're engaging and not engaging, et cetera, et cetera. And all it is feeding the conflict energy. All you're doing is feeding the conflict energy. And it's just feeding off of that. And it's like, yes, just more turmoil, more conflict, you know, more like, you know, conflict between each other. It's just feeding off of it. That's all it's doing, you know? And so again, we have to know how to ground ourselves and understand what's going on that we can't see and work there, start there. Now, again, this is also sometimes very contrary to, again, how society wants us to operate. But that's the paradigm we have to divest from again. Look, it's about, Maya and I are just divesting from paradigms all over the place. That's a lot of the work that we do, is just divesting from different paradigms. Because when you realize, you know, I use the Matrix as an example a lot, because it really helps, I think, ground and like give some type of like vantage point to how this kind of works. It's like when you divest from the Matrix, it's like you understand like, oh, right, a lot of this stuff isn't actually real. You know, like, it's like, you know, these are like systems that are in place. These systems are very real in the way that they impact us, you know, and hurt us, but they're not real in the sense that like, this is how life is supposed to be. It's like, no, it's very false, whether that's capitalism, whether that's colonialism, racism, sexism, all the isms. It's like, these are structures of the system. And when you're connected to the system, you operate within the structures and you have certain agreements with those structures. But when you divest, Maya said this so beautifully earlier this week, when you divest, those agreements are null and void. They're null and void. So you don't have to operate in the same way that the system operates. And this is what it's about, like called being of this world, being in this world, but not of it. That's what it's about. We are in this world during this lifetime. We do exist in these systems, but we are not of these systems. Of course, we couldn't escape capitalism really if we all tried. Like we are in capitalism right now because that is a system that we are in. So while we may be in it physically, and I think there are ways to divest from it physically as well. Mentally, I am divesting from capitalism. Mentally, I am divesting from these systems, and I'm divesting from these paradigms. I'm not going to choose to engage in these paradigms and to continue and exacerbate the toxicity, the injustice, and inequalities that these systems just perpetuate and propagate. I'm not going to do that anymore. Like that for me is a very hard boundary. I'm divesting. Whether it's divesting from whiteness, whether it's divesting from patriarchy, whether it's divesting from capitalism. But again, that happens on a mental and emotional level. It's like, again, how do I energetically divest? And Maya and I, very much energetic conversations, I hope serves as a portal for people to divest from various paradigms, and that's what, when we started energetic conversations on the 14th of February, that was Maya and I opening this portal and saying, hey, there's a different way to being. There's a different way to exist in this world, and we invite everyone to go through the portal and to divest from these paradigms. We invite everyone to do that. But that's work that you have to take that step forward. That's work that you have to do, that we will support in, that we will encourage you to do, that we will implore you to do. But only you can step through and only you can divest. You have to do that work. And it's the same way Maya and I are doing that work. We do that work every day. I promise you.
God.
I promise you. It's literally every day we do this work, And yes, it's challenging. It's hard. We're literally divesting from ways of being that we've been brought up our entire lives being a part of. It is such an unbecoming and an unraveling that sometimes Maya and I say to my, who are we going to even be after this? Like literally, I don't even know who we will be after we divest from all these things. Like what will be left of us? But what will be left of us is the most truest version of ourselves. People who operate from abundance as our natural state of being. People who operate from rest and joy and peace. Even if the rest of the world chooses to continue in the destructive behaviors, we're going to be grounded in the sense that we've divested. And we will truly know what it means to be in this world, but completely and unequivocally not of it.
Beautifully said. Could not agree more. And what came to mind when you were talking is that, peace is power. So from a place of power, you have the ability to take action, like right action, creative action. Solutions come when you are calm. And I know this because I used to be a solution-focused therapist. And it was in a state of trance and a state of relaxation where people have their most creative solutions. When people are deliberately forced to be in a state of anxiety, of trauma, of panic, and let's face it, that's what the mainstream news does, from the music to the way that it presents the information. It's all negative news, and it's all news that they have chosen that serve a particular purpose. What it does is it floods your nervous system with cortisol, with stress hormones, and let me tell you, you're powerless. You are not in a place of power when that happens, and that is deliberate. That is deliberate. When you have a population, when you have the masses, where you, in an anxiety-provoked state, you can manipulate them. You can manipulate them, and you can weaken them. And so when someone has peace and it's cultivated from within, and they can't actually be controlled by someone going, oh, this place is at war, or this person has done this. Actually, it's a very, very powerful state, and it terrifies those who are in control, those who are in kind of larger authority, because you can't actually easily manipulate someone who's truly peaceful. And then the actions they take are truly coming from a much more powerful place anyway. So those people, just because you're peaceful doesn't mean you don't give a shit. And like we've cultivated a lot of peace. We're still having this conversation with you guys. Like, we are taking action. We didn't have to do this. These conversations are challenging. It takes a certain amount of training and skill to even work through these topics. But we want to, firstly, because we want to help, but also it brings us joy. This is where our joy lies, because we like having conversations and we like working through energy. So we're choosing to help in a way that is in alignment with our joy. And what I would encourage anyone listening to do is to find a way to help that is it most in your joy. So what do you enjoy doing? Can you turn that in a way to help? And if you can't, then you can't. You know, just be enjoyed. That in itself cultivates the energy, which the world desperately needs more of. It doesn't mean you're ignorant or that you don't care. And everyone has a certain role that they're suited to. I'm not a paramedic. I never could be. Like, I'm not suited. I hate the sight of blood. I hate, like, I would faint. I'm not going to lie, I would faint. So I know what I can and cannot do. I know my boundaries and I know my limits. And I think we all need to kind of think about that, you know, like, what is our gift? You know, some people create artwork that inspires and opens the heart. Our hearts need to be open right now, you know, so creatives, you know, just because creatives aren't out there on the front line doesn't mean they're not inspiring people who are on the front line. You know, that's the thing, we all play a part and we're all diverse for a reason and we all support each other in our own ways. So just because you're seeing what's happening out there and some people are like literally on the front line, you're not. I would encourage you to not feel guilt about that and just find a place of peace and joy within yourself, and then creative solutions will naturally arise from that place.
Definitely, 100%. And again, I want to reiterate, this is different to bypassing. Yeah. This is the opposite of bypassing. This is staring directly straight into the conflict and being like, how am I going to best serve myself and others in this space? Yeah. This is the complete opposite of bypassing. And I just want to be very clear about that.
Yeah.
You know, we all have to do the work. And this is a big part of the work. We all have to do the work. So it's not like I get to, as a man, just sit on the sideline and be like, I'm protecting my peace and never engage in issues around women and non-binary folks. Like that's not how it works. Okay. It's like I stare directly into it. I allow the work to take it, you know, to do its part, you know, and I confront myself, and the work is confronting. There's no way that the work cannot be confronting. Yeah. It will confront you even if you don't want it to. It will. I'm telling you, it will confront you. 2 o'clock in the morning, and you're trying to go to sleep, and it'll confront you. You know, Maya and I jumped on a call on this past Sunday just to catch up, literally just to catch up, and you know, as friends, just to catch up. And the work just called us. And like, we're literally having this conversation, and we literally, for about, I think, 2 or 3 hours, we're just doing the work. It will come up in the moments you least expect it. Yeah. That is a part of living this out. It's the truth. But on the other side of that is healing. On the other side of that is joy. On the other side is the knowing and the being of divesting from these paradigms. And I'm telling you, like, the more I continue to divest, and it's challenging at times, the more I continue to divest, the more of myself I get to know. It's like, I'm like, wow, like, this is who I am. I'm not all this like patriarchal bullshit that's been like put on top of me, and all this racial trauma that's been, you know, that I'm enduring, and all the stuff that I've lived in my life. It's like, actually, I'm not any of that stuff. Like, the soul that is underneath that I'm getting to know, like, is so beautiful. And it's worth all the pain that I have to endure to divest from these systems and these paradigms. It's worth it, because it's a completely new way of being. And it's like they always say, like, the next revolution will be one of the mind. And I completely agree. It's like, we're divesting from the mind. It's a divestment in the mind. And like, literally, like, again, jump through that portal and save yourself. And save yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the inner evolution. And it's beautiful for you to talk about that. And something that came to my mind was the cleansing of the heart. Because when we see conflict around in this world, it's because our hearts are closed. The reason these are happening is because people's hearts are closed, and the energy of our hearts is closed. And so they turn on each other and they kill each other, and they project all of their inner pain onto other people because they haven't healed in their own hearts. And I think what we're doing, and what I guess what this whole conversation is about, is what is in your heart? What needs cleansing and healing in your heart? Where's the conflict in you? Which systems are harming you that you wish to walk out of, step out of? How can your heart be cleansed? Because this is it's the micro to the macro. You know, we are so intrinsically connected to the earth and to all other beings. If we heal our hearts, we will heal the outer as well. And I think that whole idea of like everything being a seemingly random physical natural state of events. It's so colonial, because before colonization, most, you know, indigenous and earth honoring religions, and they still do, you know, we understood this concept that we're all connected. You can't, it's like with patriarchy, for example, like harming women harms Mother Earth, harming the feminine harms the feminine, whether it's micro or macro. And we've seen it, like we see the effects of that. And so it's like, you know, we're returning to what feels very logical, actually, that we are intrinsically connected, and nothing is like a seemingly random state of events. You know, there's a war in our heart and there's a war out there. You know, that's the fact of the matter. And once again, like Daniel said, it's not bypassing, because this is hard to talk about. If it was bypassing, we'd just say, actually, let's not even worry about any of this. Let's not even do the work. But actually, it's the inner work that is the hardest thing to do. Pointing our fingers at someone else is easier.
Yeah.
And blaming them.
Yeah, and again, it's the work that you can't see.
Yeah.
Always, you know, you can see the fruits of it. The fruits of it will manifest physically, definitely. Yeah. And that's why, you know, that's part of the reason why we do the work, to see the fruits of that. But it's a lot of what you can't see. And so, you know, I guess that's really what I would like, you know, people to leave with, you know, is just, is I echo everything that Maya said, and commit yourself to the work. Commit yourself to the work. Commit.
Yeah.
Commit. That is where the real change is going to take place. You've got to do it. You've got to do it. And hopefully energetic conversations will be a guide for you, will be, like I said earlier, to be able to encourage you and support you in that. But ultimately, each and every single one of us have to commit ourselves to doing that. It's to divest from these systems and these paradigms, and to live the life that we were, you know, that I believe that all of us can live, you know, to know ourselves fully, to be grounded in that, in that sense of self, you know. And so I feel like if I talk anymore, I'm going to go around in circles, but it's honestly, it's just, I really feel that. I really feel that. And it's like, honestly, like the portals are open. I just want people to know the portals are open. Energetic conversations is an invitation to divest from paradigms, to divest from these toxic ways of being. That's what energetic conversations is all about. Whether you choose to accept the invitation, that's for you to choose and to decide. Mm-hmm. But the invitation is there, you know?
Yeah. And I think as well, before we go, let's talk about some of the practical ways. I mean, we've spoken about like, how do we, you know, we've spoken about peace, finding peace, like finding joy. Actually, there are some practical ways that we can do that in our everyday lives. And it does tie back to our initial conversation about energetic boundaries. So having firm energetic boundaries, like cleansing your energy when you can. So every day, especially if you're a sensitive person, which I'm guessing a lot of people who have joined us are, we will be taking on a lot of people's energies. Now, I'm talking about the news, I'm talking about social media, and I'm talking about friends, family, colleagues, all of that. So you will have potentially a buildup of everyone else's energy in your energy field. So sometimes it will be hard to figure out what your emotions are and what other people's emotions are. So every day, I mean, for me, what helped is taking moments to just go, I release everyone else's energy from my energy field into Mother Earth. And just kind of doing that throughout the day, when you're in the shower as well, that can really help, because you have the physical cleansing of the water, so you can the energies to the water. So just remembering to keep releasing all of that sort of potentially toxic energy that isn't yours. Just keep releasing it from your energy field, keep reminding yourself that you're carrying a lot of this, you know. So that's one thing. I think another thing as well is, I know this sounds so obvious, and like so many people, you're going to predict that I'm going to say this, but meditation, really helps. And I'm one of those people. I don't like instructions, as I'm sure many of you guessed. Hate instructions, hate being told what to do, like hate all that kind of stuff. So like with me, meditation was a journey that was very much my own. Like I just started listening to music that I really resonated with, and then I just started to feel into parts of my body. I didn't sort of sit there with a manual, or like I didn't even listen to many people guiding me through, because it didn't usually work for me. I'm not like a hugely visual person. I'm more of a body-based knowing person. So figuring out what works for you and what kind of person you are, like do you get visuals? Maybe you can get visuals. listen to something that guides you through visuals. If you're a body-based person, maybe you want to do a body scan, or you want like something in the forest, you want like a forest-based music. Find things that work for you, and even if it's 10 minutes a day before bed, like honestly, it does really make a difference. And it's not something that you necessarily, it's a sudden change. It could be, but usually with meditation, it's sort of change that one day you're in conflict with someone and you realize that you acted in a much more peaceful, calm way than you would have a year ago. And the difference is that maybe you started meditating. So like it's one of those like very subtle shifts that you notice when you're placed in a similar situation, like a few months down the line, and you're like, oh, I responded in a much calmer way than I would have before. So that's one of the things I would say as well. Getting good sleep. I know if you're a highly sensitive person as well, like myself, I need at least 9 hours sleep. Most of the time I need 10 because I'm processing so much. Because the information you take in, especially with social media, and if you're sensitive anyway, you'll be taking in other people's energy, you'll be bombarded all the time, and things that aren't even conscious. So making sure that you get a good rest, because rest is where like your body sifts through, like processes all of that as well. Make sure you're eating well, all of the things that you could predict that I'd say, but really, like they are really, really important. Would you add anything else to that as well?
Definitely. All great things, Maya. I would say, you spoke to it already, but like boundaries, I have boundaries, and then more boundaries, healthy boundaries, by the way. I'm just had this situation with my sister's in-laws, and like, again, I'm now having to set new boundaries with people, to protect my energy and to protect my well-being. So setting healthy boundaries is just incredibly important. And sometimes you have to fortify and reapply those boundaries. It's like the boundaries were set, and now I've got to go now back to my sister and reiterate some new boundaries, and reiterate some of the old boundaries as well. It's like, look, these are my boundaries. I'm just here to reiterate my boundaries and also add some new boundaries as well, based off of what has happened, And so it's like boundaries are just one of those really important things. I want to speak to what Maya said about releasing energy, because that's not something I consciously did up until recently, because I was at Maya's house, and she was talking to me a lot about releasing energy, and I started doing it. And I'm telling you now, it's probably been about a month. I have seen a difference. I've definitely seen a difference. And the thing is, you think about it and you're like, is that it? Like you just release people's energy? Like you just like literally like, but it's like, no, it's like, again, because the energetic is the unseen, it's like you are releasing, again, all the stuff you're picking up on the day. So I started doing that. I needed to do that yesterday because I was with my sister's in-laws. And so like, I was definitely doing that in the shower, and because it's something Maya recommended to me, like when I'm in the shower, just think of like, the water really just rinsing off everyone's energy from me. And I stand there, and my shower time is sacred anyway. I take very long showers. Anyone who knows me knows I take very long showers. But I'm just there, and I'm just literally there, just releasing people's energy, and just allowing it to flow off of me, and the peace that you get. And it's like, again, it may not be a thing that happens overnight, but like Maya said, over time, you'll realize that, I'm not holding on to so much more people's stuff, And that's another thing. You don't have to hold other people's energy. You don't have to do that. Like I release people's energy daily now. Like when I get microaggressions, or there's some like racist stuff that happens to me, or prejudicial stuff that happens to me, I release it. I give that energy back to them. I'm saying, I'm not holding that. This is your stuff. I'm not going to hold that. I give this energy back for you to carry, for you to hold, and for you to deal with. Whether you choose to deal with it or not, that's on you. But I'm giving it back to you. And so it's a very empowering thing to do as well. It's just like, look, I'm not holding that. You take it back. That abusive energy, you hold it. You sit with it. You take that to your partner. You take that to your family. You take that to your kids. I'm not holding that. You do the work. I'm doing my own work. So I love releasing energy now. And that's directly because of Maya, and like it has changed me. It really has changed me. And like I said, it's very empowering. So boundaries, releasing energy, which is Maya already said, and just doing things that bring joy. I think that's just one of those things, like Maya said, we love doing this. We love speaking. We would be doing this. We do this all the time anyway. Like, if you all could join our Zoom calls, like literally, like,
it's this.
The other day we were literally on a Zoom call for 8 hours. I'm not lying to you. It was literally 8 hours. Like, we love this. This is what we do anyway. So connecting with people, I have a close group of people around me. I connect with them. You know, when I get lonely, when I need to connect, when I'm craving intimacy, like platonic intimacy, I reach out to them and like we connect, and that fills me up, you know. So these are all things that help to ground me, that help to keep me peaceful, that help to keep me in my joy. And so dancing's another one, like dancing and movement, like that's a really big one for me too. So it just helps me to just stay grounded. And again, it's, you know, some of these are very predictable things, but again, they're predictable for a reason. You know, get into them, and you really will see your life start to shift and change. You really will. And from that space, you'll be in a much better space to start divesting from these paradigms and to know what you're really thinking and feeling.
Absolutely. And, you know, what came to mind when you were speaking with the path of least resistance. So for us, like, we find joy in talking. So, you know, we're sharing this. We actually genuinely find this joyful. Like, we love this. I'm happy right now. I'm genuinely happy right now. And so, you know, happiness doesn't have to be something that comes after a lot of suffering. Like, you can find something with the least amount of resistance. You know, joy should come smoothly. It doesn't have to be this thing that you have to work towards. Just do something that is small, that doesn't take a lot of resistance, and, you know, whatever that is for you. And a few other things came to me about how we can look after ourselves. So journaling. So for you, dancing is like really important. For me, being a writer and having a lot of like cerebral energy, not that you don't, but like I just want to make that.
I'm caveman.
I was like, I hope that doesn't come across the wrong way. But like, because I get like really in my head and really anxious and stressed about things. So journaling, even when I was a child, in fact, that is the thing that got me through when I didn't have anyone else apart from one close friend throughout all of my teenage years. Journaling was profoundly helpful because it made me feel like I had someone to talk to. And I do believe that there were beings, you know, listening. And I was heard, but also it was a way of getting the energy out of my body and onto the page. It was something really simple. And as I said, the path of least resistance, it doesn't have to be a mind-blowing, life-changing thing. It's like literally journaling can help you feel a bit better. And a very obvious one is social media and news intake. Are you doom scrolling? Catch yourself if you are, and maybe try and get conscious of that. Like, what am I gaining here? Gaining all of this information, which a lot of it could be misinformation as well. How am I turning this into something helpful for me and for the collective? Or am I just feeling frozen? Am I feeling paralyzed? Am I feeling terrible about my life and the world around me? If it's option number 2, please stop. Please stop and find something that fills you with a sense of peace and calm. And I'm not even kidding. I started following animal accounts. I follow nature photography. I find images, because I do love social media and I do like using it, but I'm using it to create and cultivate a sense of peace inside me. And looking at nature reminds me of this beautiful earth and makes me want to do good here. So it does have a lot of like multiple effects, basically. So yeah, news, just be mindful that the news is cultivated for a very specific reason by a very specific group of people. And from the moment the news starts, it is designed to boost your cortisol level, which is stress. You are designed to be put into a very, very stressful state immediately when you hear those chimes. And we all know what those chimes are. I haven't watched the news for ages, but those particular chimes that come on when the news is going on, like, notice your body when that happens. Does it relax, or does it go into like a stiff negative place? So just notice what's causing you to freeze and see if you can just clock out of those for a bit and, you know, look at something else that actually relaxes you, if that makes sense.
100%, definitely. Well, I think we're rounding out now. If anyone has any questions, feel free to put them in the chat box or in the question box. I think there's a button for that. But if not, I think we're just gonna round out. It's been really good spending time with you, Maya. It's like, you know, it's always a good time.
You too, and thank you so much for everyone who's joined today. We know it's not an easy conversation to have, and there's so much kind of polarity out there. People are taking very polarizing roles, and we didn't want to add to any of that. We wanted to bring a more nuanced, energetic, loving kind of theme to this conversation. So we hope we've done that. And we will see you next week for another energetic conversation.
See you all. Take care. Lots of love. We'll see you next week.